Man.
How are things?
There it is, at last. Reminds me of that time. Now get out there. Ready?
See you around, buddy.
You can do this. Over here.
I'm ready.
keep yourself together. Keep looking. Don't let up. We're bound to pick up the trail somewhere.
Watch yourself!
Finding, I do, and Rob. Sardo pulled on his new outfit, a pair of dark red pants, and a long-sleeved black shirt, then turned, looking to see what Sokka and I had chosen. Sokka hadn't done too bad. He had a plain brown shirt with no sleeves and stitched closed up the front, black shorts, red sandals,
Oh my.
black
Oh
pants,
dear.
as was common in the Fire Nation, and a red Fire Nation
Good work,
shirt.
climbers. Now get out there and show us how it's done.
Watch yourself!
verbally greet anyone first. If they are older than you, or someone who rates respect, like any military, government, or someone that you genuinely respect, like so. He placed his right fist against the bottom of his left hand as it was held up and down, holding it in front of himself before bowing slightly. Try. All three that could see did it, and holding his fist sideways. Sardo corrected him, then took Topher's hands, showing her how to hold them. Now, God forbid we meet any royalty, but don't immediately attack us. Stay away from them, Sardo said. What if we run into your family? Toph asked. Pray you don't, Sardo said. Let's go get some supplies, Sokka said. And I want a new necklace, Katara said. Sardo nodded, and they all headed into town. The other four bowed to anyone Sardo did, though he didn't bow to many people, and they allowed him to handle greeting everyone else, just nodding a greeting to whoever they passed. If anyone calls you out on not greeting them properly, just say you're from the colonies, Sardo said. They'll usually let it slide. They nodded, then stopped as they reached a clothing store, Katara buying a necklace with gold along the top, then red fabric that curved down into a point between her collarbones, and had an orange gemstone. Oh, we're going to a meat plate. Come on, Aang. He gestured to the side. I'll just go get some lettuce out of the garden. Sokka shrugged. Hot. About to be, Sard. Do you mind doing mine? He heated her. Where's Aang? Toph knelt, placing. Sardo looked around slowly before. What? I knew that symbol looked familiar. What one? Oh, don't tell me. Aang grabbed a school uniform for a boarding school, Sardo said. Any Fire Nation officer that saw him would have assumed he was playing hooky and taken him to the school. Should we go? No, Sardo said. Better to wait until he comes back to our place. I just hope he can stay out of trouble for long enough. So do I, Sokka sighed. Come on. We still need supplies. Sardo nodded, all of them continuing through the town. They stopped at several stores, buying food, medical supplies, and other things they might need, like bedrolls. Then, they headed back to the cave to wait for Aang. Where have you been? I got invited to play with some kids after school. Let me guess, hide and explode. Yep, and what's that? It's like hide and seek, except when you get found, they start shooting fireballs at you until either you surrender, knock them down, or get knocked down, Sardo said. Actually, I won, Aang said. They said I was the best dodger they'd ever seen. Careful they don't find out why, Sardo said. Anyway, now that you're back, we're ready to leave in the morning. But I don't want to leave, Aang said. Stuff that an actual Fire Nation native can't tell us. What about the secret river? Flows directly to the Fire Lord's palace, Sardo said. Used primarily for the royal family to come and go without having to ride all the way to the nearest port city firm. Oh, Aang said. We'll stay a few more days. Flamio Homan. Sardo sighed. We'd better be ready to leave in a hurry. The others nodded in agreement before heading to bed for the night. Aang, Sardo said, pinching the bridge of his nose. Do you have any idea how horrible an idea this is? I'm 2 years older than you. Katara is 2 years older than you. Sokka is 2 years older than you. Your parents would have to be, at minimum, 15 years older than you, and even then it's extremely doubtful that you would be being raised by them. Actually, you wouldn't be being raised by them. I know, Aang said. But I have to bring someone. Sardo sighed again before tilting his head back, thinking carefully. Okay. Katara and I will handle it. Just let us do all the talking. Aang nodded and Sardo walked over to their gear, getting the false beard Sokka had gotten for in case of emergency situations, which this definitely was. Thank you for coming, Mr. and Mrs. The headmaster trailed off. Lee, Sardo said. Mr. and Mrs. Lee, it's nice to meet you, the headmaster said. Besides Sardo, Katara had used pillows and a rock for weight to make herself seem 7 months pregnant, her skirt now covering her stomach, and a pair of baggy brown pants covering her legs, and had her hair in a pair of very, very puffy buns on the side of her head, along with a top knot. Your son has been enrolled here for 2 days,
nice
and is
day,
already
huh?
causing problems, the headmaster said. Is that right? Sardo asked, looking to Aang, who ducked his head down. He's argued with his history My goodness, Katara said. That's what any mother would say, the headmaster said. Nonetheless, you're forewarned. Perfectly, Sardo. Good, the headmaster said. Sardo stood, bowing to the headmaster. Are you trying to get us caught? Sardo asked. In a single day, you nearly got yourself sent to the coal mines. You'd not only have been identified as the Avatar in an instant. I'm sorry, Aang said. I didn't mean to cause problems. And the fight wasn't even me. The other kid just started attacking me for talking to his girlfriend on G. Oh really? Katara asked, taking off her... I'm sorry. She's not mad about the trouble, Sardo said, sitting down beside the fire. At least not fully. She's mad about on G. Why? Aang asked. Sardo shook his head. Chuck, we need to leave before this gets worse. I'm not ready to leave, Aang said. I finally get to be... Ha ha, Toph said. So, listen guys, Aang said. Those kids at school are the future of the Fire Nation. If we want to change this place for the better, we need to show them a little taste of freedom. What could you possibly do for a country of depraved little fire... Ouch, present company excluded. I'm going to throw them a secret dance party. Go to your room. I said.
Go to your room.
Those kids don't even know what dancing is. This is a terrible idea, Sardo said. Fuck it. Let's get this over with so we can leave this town, and never return. The other nodded and went to bed early. The next day, while Aang was at school, they began to set up, Sardo lighting and setting out candles, Sokka helping set out the candles, Toph forming a stage and 3 high-rises for the band, and Katara forming an ice punch bowl. I can't believe we're having a dance party, Sokka said. It just seems so silly. Don't think of it as a dance party, Aang said, but as a cultural event celebrating the art of fancy footwork. He did a dance involving kicking his legs out to the side one at a time. They're coming, Toph said. Everyone stop bending. Sardo quickly led Appa into the back of the cave. Then Sardo, Katara, Toph, and Sokka sat off to the side. Once the other students had gathered and got the band playing, then began to show the students several ancient Fire Nation dances that no one did anymore, especially in the Fire Nation. Who knew Twinkle Toes could dance? Toph laughed, taking a drink from one of the ice cups Katara had made. Katara smiled, watching Aang preform even more. Finally, he pulled a girl, Sardo was guessing on G, onto the dance floor, both beginning to do an Earth Kingdom ballroom dance. Wow, they look pretty good together, Sokka said. Hey, if that... Which it is, Sardo smirked, Katara shooting him a death glare. Finally, students began to dance, starting with the one Aang and Onji were doing before Aang called for a freestyle. Several students tried. Some weren't bad. Some were terrible. One started I don't know, Aang, Katara said. Take my hand. Okay, Katara. Then, they began to circle. Shit, Sardo said. Shit. Then, they began to circle each other, both in a combat stance, their forearms against one another's. Sardo watched, impressed, as they circled round and round, alternating direction, throwing strikes with imaginary water, and using each other's movements continue the dance, every set of eyes in the cave, minus Topher's on them. They began to add kicks one in a while, then flips, spins, dodges, cartwheels, and finally Katara spun into Aang's arms before he dipped her just as the song ended. Sardo smiled. Shit, Sardo said. He's the one we want, the headmaster shouted, pointing. The boy with the guards took off instantly, and Sado saw Anne running through the crowd. Except, the guards didn't make it to them. One of them spun a different student. Finding, I do not own any of the original. Master. Sado stared at the meteor shower, eyes wide, and Topher's hand in his so that she could watch as well. For the last few days, they had been helping a village in a polluted river get. Man, seeing something like this makes you realize just how insignificant we are. Personally, I just think it's cool, Sado said. I don't really feel insignificant. Now, if we had to try and stop one from crushing us, that'd be a different story. Suddenly, one flew low, curving and heading for them. Oh fuck you, universe, Sado said, scrambling to his feet as the meteor fell faster, blue flames surrounding it. However, the meteor flashed over them, crashing down in a massive blue explosion in the distance. They all stared at it for a moment before Sado grinned. Last one, there's a rotten egg, Sado said, taking off running. A moment later, however, Katara shot past on a nearby river, and shot past on a sphere of air. Toph raced past using her earthbending, and Sokka flew past on Appa. Sado smirked, sending flames exploding out of his hands, and some out of his feet, as Azula had done against Aang, and shot forward rapidly, gaining on Toph and Appa. Finally, they reached the impact site and Sado let his flames end, landing on his feet before the flames left by the explosion, and spinning, pulling the flames off of the ground into a gigantic sphere before slowly lowering his hands, the fire dying out as he did. He turned back toward the crater, staring at the massive boulder of black, shiny stone in the center. That's fancy, Sado said, sliding down the crater to rest his hand on it. It's smooth. You shouldn't touch it, Sokka said. It could be dangerous. It's just stone, Sokka, Sado said. Yeah, from space, Sokka said. Sado shrugged. Let's make camp here for the night, Katara said. Tomorrow we need to head into town to buy supplies. Alright, Sado said, walking out of the crater. A few minutes later, and they were all ready to go to sleep for the night. The next day, they went into town, getting some breakfast and noticing that no one seemed to have noticed the meteor strike. These people have no idea how close they came to getting toasted last night, Aang said. Yeah, the worst thing about being in disguise is we don't get the hero worship anymore, Toph said. I miss the love. Boo-hoo, poor heroes, Sokka said from off to the side, his smoked sea slug untouched. What's your problem? Katara asked. It's just, all you guys can do this awesome bending stuff like putting out forest fires, and flying around, and making other stuff fly around. I can't fly around, okay? I can't do anything. That's not true, Katara said. No one can read a map like you. I can't read at all, Toph said. Yeah, and who keeps us laughing with sarcastic comments all the time? Aang asked. I mean, look at Katara's hair, right? What's up with that? What? Katara asked, blushing. What's wrong with my hair? Nothing, Aang said. I was just trying to. Look, I appreciate the effort, Sokka said. But the fact of the matter is, each of you is so amazing, and so special, and I'm not. I'm just the guy in the group who's regular. Sokka, can you speak up? Sado asked. It's hard to hear you with that pity dick in your mouth. Sokka glared at him. Bending aside, the reason you feel like we're all special is because we've all had someone to train us at one point or another, Sado said. You've never had a master, Sokka said. Sado snorted. The fuck I haven't. You think I'm this good with weapons or as a firebender from natural skill? Well, with the firebending maybe some. But the weapons thing you have to work at. And coincidentally, we happen to be in the perfect place for that. Why? Sokka asked. This is the village where I learned to wield a sword, Sado said. I'm going to introduce you to my old master. Sokka stared at him before grinning and nodding. Okay. First we're going weapon shopping, though, Sado said. I need a new gen still. What about Jet's swords? Katara asked. They are great, but I prefer Jen's, Sado said. Anyway, you had better eat, Sokka. It's hard training, and you're going to need the food. Sokka nodded, beginning to eat instantly. Once they were all done, they went to a weapon shop and Sado began to look around. He stopped as Aang stepped out from behind a rack wearing a suit of ridiculously heavy and very sharp-looking armor, which would be intimidating if you didn't know that he could probably only barely move. All I need to complete the outfit is a wind sword, and was telling Katara. It's where I take a sword handle and bend air through it like a blade, and said, beginning to swing an empty handle around, making swishing sound effects. Aang, you're a genius, Sado said, grinning. Thanks, Aang smiled. Sado walked to the back of the shop where they had handles for anyone that wanted a custom sword. After about 10 minutes, he got a hilt with a white finger guard with a dragon carved on both sides. He paid for it, finding he was the only person getting something, though Sokka was admiring one of Piandao's gems, which was hanging in a display case. Don't buy it, Sado said. Why? Sokka asked. Oh, let me guess, you want it? No, Sado said. You shouldn't buy it because once Master Piandao decides you're good enough, you'll be making your own gem, just as I did. I'm not buying it, because my gem is still at Master Piandao's home. Why? Sokka asked. I had to leave in a hurry, Sado said. Family problems. Master Piandao should still have my sword. Sokka nodded, and they left the shop, Sado leading him to Piandao's home, using one of the gate's knockers to summon Piandao's butler. Are you sure he heard? Sokka asked. Patience, Sado said. It's one of the most important parts of sword fighting. When you meet Piandao, just be honest with him. He hates bragging, and aside from me, I don't know anyone else he trained. How'd you get him to train you? Sokka asked. Sado smiled, turning back to the door as it opened and a man with a maroon robe, grey sideburns, and a grey topknot looked at them. Can I help you? He asked. We're here to speak with Master Piandao, Sado said. My friend wishes to train with him. You should know, he turns almost everyone away, the butler said to Sokka, before holding out his hand. What did you bring him to prove your worth? Well, Sokka felt his body for anything he could use, and the Right, the Sado and Sokka followed in silence, Sado smiling pleasantly, and Sokka and Mater, my name is Sokka, and I wish to be instructed in the way of the sword, Sokka, that's an unusual name, Piandao said. Oh, where I come from, let me guess, Piandao said. You've come hundreds of miles from your little village, where you're the best swordsman in town, and you think you deserve to learn from the master. Well, actually, I've been all over the world, Sokka said. Yep, here we go, Piandao said. And I know one thing for sure, Sokka said, kneeling and lowering his head. I have a lot to learn. You're not doing a very good job of selling yourself, Piandao said, glancing back at him, then nodding slightly in greeting to Sado, who bowed. I know, Sokka said. I see, Piandao said, standing and picking up his sword. Well then, let's find out Sokka smiled widely before bowing. Sado, it is good to see you again, Piandao said. I came as soon as I safely could, Master, Sado bowed. With your permission. Of course, Piandao nodded. Thank you, Master. Piandao nodded. The warrior practices a variety of arts to keep his mind sharp and fluid. Writing my name will make me a better swordsman. Sokka asked skeptically. When you write your name, you stamp the paper with your identity, Piandao said. You must learn to use your sword to stamp your identity on a battlefield. Sokka dipped the brush. Remember, you cannot take back a stroke of the brush, or a stroke of the sword, Piandao said. Sokka's hand began to tremble slightly before he... You are getting ink on your face. I am. Sokka asked before his face lit up. I am. Piandao nodded and Sokka swiped ink across his face in a zigzagging line. Sado held the wooden djinn at the ready, Sokka moving. Would you cut that out? Would you hold your sword correctly so that I can't? Sokka retrieved the sword again. Sado dragged the brush across the paper quickly, swapping to a brush with a different color of ink whenever he needed to. Finally, he finished, at the same time as Sokka did. I'm finished. Sado stared at it, then at Sokka's proud grin, then sighed. He didn't know why he had expected different. Sokka had drawn a pair of blue mountains, a flat green grassland, a cloud, 2 birds, and a rainbow. All of it was poorly drawn as well, but the quality wasn't what mattered. It was the face that the actual view was a rolling grassland, which turned into a plateau, and had a river running toward them from the center with a waterfall facing them. You've improved, Sado, Piandao said, before turning to Sokka's. Is that okay? Piandao sighed, shaking his head. Sado knocked Sokka's slash to the side, stabbing at him. Sokka, Piandao said. Sokka rested his forehead on the ground. Rock gardening teaches the warrior to manipulate his surroundings, and manipulate them to my advantage, Sokka said thoughtfully, looking around. He ran down the steps to the rock garden, and Sado sighed. I'll clean up the mess after. Piandao smirked knowingly, and they watched as Sokka moved several rocks around before grabbing a layer of moss from one rock and placed it on another, then lay down on it, a second, smaller rock serving as a footrest. Sokka sighed comfortably, and Sado actually slammed his hand into Just then, the butler arrived, gaping at the rocks and dirt filling the once clean garden. Hey, would you mind grabbing a cold drink for me? Sokka asked him. The butler looked to Piandao. I'll take a slice of lemon in mine, Piandao said. The butler made a series of noises while he was trying to speak, gesturing. Sado. Not bad, Sado said, both turning and bowing to Master Piandao. You've had a good first. I have. Sokka asked. But I thought I messed up every single thing we worked on. You messed things up in a very special way, Piandao said. Sokka gasped excitedly. No, Piandao said, Sokka deflating slightly before glancing at. Sokka's eyes widened and he bowed. Sado opened the door of the room he and Sokka were allowed to stay. Come, it's time to select your metal. Sokka nodded, choosing the correct material. Sokka began to weigh different ingots in his hands, biting one of them before pausing. I wouldn't have it any other. Sokka nodded and left quickly, Sado looking around. Sado nodded and followed him. Thank you for taking care of. You're welcome, Piandao said. Truthfully, I did not know if I would see you again. I found a way to manage it, at long last, Sado said. Now I can truly use this sword as it was intended. That's good. Of course, Master, Sado back.